Meanwhile, let's try and figure out what the Celtics can do to bounce back after they were handled pretty easily in their own building by the Bucks in Game 1. Giannis Antetokounmpo dominating in so many ways, despite not having a great shooting day. In fact, it was his third worst shooting day in his playoff career. He still had a triple-double. He was so effective. Jason Tatum, meanwhile, shot just 33%. The team made only 10 two-point field goals in the game, which is the second fewest in any playoff game of all time. And then a huge decision is looming. Marcus Smart, who's such an incredibly important piece of that team and the Defensive Player of the Year, he is questionable with a quad injury. He missed 6 games in January with that injury. Again, JB is here, but I want to bring in Wendy first. What do we know, Wendy, about the status of Marcus Smart for tonight's Game 2?
Yeah, he is listed as questionable. In listening to Ime Udoka, the coach, yesterday, it sounded like it was trending toward a game-time decision. They're going to see how he feels when he warms up. Greeny, I would be very surprised if Marcus Smart does not play in this game. I think he will go. The question is, how effective is he going to be moving? Because this isn't a pain tolerance issue, but really a restricted movement issue. This is the playoffs. No mercy. You know, as soon as he gets out on that court tonight, the Bucks are going to run him through some screens and test it out.
Okay, so there's one thing you never question about him, it's the toughness, right? You love him, you hate him, but you respect the toughness. So, J.B. Bickerstaff, again, head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers and a lifer in every conceivable way. Let's talk about the adjustment you make now if you're Boston. That big lineup with Portis starting alongside Antetokounmpo and Lopez for Milwaukee. It clearly caused all kinds of problems for Boston. Give me the coaching adjustment that the Celtics make tonight in Game 2.
They got to create more off-ball movement. What the Celtics have done in the past has been a very good isolation basketball team. With that size that the Bucks have, they've been able to load and just stand and protect the paint and shrink the floor. So put the ball in your big guy's hands, create some two-sided movement, see if you can cause some mistakes on the defense.
It's interesting because that's similar to what people were telling me that the Nets needed to do throughout that series against the Celtics, and they never were really able to do it. And people would tell me it's because that's kind of playing against type. That's not what they do. They give it to Durant and Kyrie and let them create. Similarly here, that's kind of what the Celtics do, right? They give it to Tatum, let him find something. Give it to Brown, let him find something. How do you play against type if that's not generally what you do offensively?
It's difficult, and that's why the Bucks have been preparing for this moment the entire season. They've done a great job of switching. They understand how to play with length. That's why they're the defending world champs, because they've gotten so good at it, and they know it's difficult for teams to make those adjustments in the playoffs.
Help me with this, Legs. How do they do that? Because I will admit to being stunned by what I saw in that Game 1. Boston's just complete inability to find any offense against Milwaukee.
They've got to, off their initial action, when those guys, either one of those guys are ISO and running ball screen, they've got to get the ball hopping to the other side out of the initial action. They typically like to come off and then go. Once you get the ball moving, and now you get Milwaukee's bigs rotating out of that, when the ball then changes sides of the floor back in their hands, they're probably going to be operating against a closeout defender. Now you can get to a pull-up 18-footer because the mid-range has to be part of this equation. And, JB, I just thought, if you're going to take 53s, right, and a far fewer percentage of twos, you don't have a chance to beat a team like Milwaukee. There's got to be greater balance in that, but you can't do it the way that you normally do against this type of length. You're going to have to get those guys chasing the ball a little bit.
And then, Wendy, I want to talk about Giannis. You were on yesterday when Big Pert came on here, and he made, I think, a pretty big statement. He said, as he watches Giannis now, he's getting LeBron in Cleveland vibes, which is to say that the East is going to run through that guy for a decade. I mean, LeBron ruined a lot of people's careers for a decade by owning the East. Are we ready to say Giannis is reaching that level right now?
Absolutely. I had flashbacks sitting in the TD Garden on a Sunday afternoon playoff game, watching a really great Celtics team have trouble with a transcendent player who didn't even play his best game, yet still made all of his teammates better in one. You know, LeBron repeatedly went up into the Celtics against great teams. Sometimes he won and sometimes he lost, but he always kept his team in the game because of his multi-talented ability. That is where Giannis is, and Giannis as a defender is probably at a higher level than LeBron even ever was.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.